It's coming up on the most wonderful time of the year. Christmas season is upon us. End of year is upon us. Are you ready as a leader for people who want to give? In this Word Made Digital tutorial, we're going to be talking about a strategy for giving, a strategy for increasing gifts, and a strategy for generosity in your church and charity. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Word Made Digital Tutorials. I'm Joanna, and this is a whole series of tutorials trying to help you communicate the best news in the world. We're helping you with digital communications and how to connect with people with your message. Well, at the end of the year, we have so much giving happening. So we wanted to take time to talk about year-end giving and how to communicate that better in your church community or within your charity context. And so thank you so much to Compassion Canada for making this whole tutorial possible. We're going to tell you a little bit more about them later because there are opportunities for you and for your community to be generous as well through things like the gift catalog from Compassion. If you're looking for gifts, if you're trying to mobilize people in your community to get involved in something beyond themselves, beyond the local community, Compassion Canada has some amazing ways to do it. But let's talk about year-end giving. The number one thing you need to know is that people want to give to you and your charity, your church at the end of the year. Did you know that 30% of the year's whole giving happens in December? And even more so, 10% of the whole year's giving happens in the last couple days of the year. So people want to give. So let's not make it hard for them to do so. Let's figure out some ways and some tips here for how to make it not just clear and successful, but maybe your best year of giving yet. So number one, why do people give so much at the end of the year? I think there's a couple of reasons. I think number one, the first thing we think about is taxes. Of course, people are trying to get their giving in before the tax year ends. And maybe that's a fairly pessimistic way of looking at it. Of course, that is a factor. That's why people give that 10% in the last couple days of the year as we're getting into year end. People want to make sure they get it in for the tax year. But I think more than that, we need to recognize that Christmas overall is both by tradition and I think by emotive feeling and desire, a time where people want to give back, a time where people are aware of the needs of others in a maybe more highlighted way than they are throughout the year, a time where people stop and say, of course, as we believe in the church, that Jesus was a great gift, and how can we give gifts to others? It's not just by tradition, although that's a huge factor, but I do think genuinely people are more open to the idea of giving at this time more than any other time in the year. And even now in this, the fears of recession and inflation and all of that, how much more so people are going to feel the pinch of it, but also see the opportunities to give to others. So here's a few more tips on how to think about how to communicate about giving so you can have your best year ever. The first thing we need to do is identify if we have made the opportunity to give clear. Have we said it clearly and plainly to people that this time of year is a great time to give? We want you to give. And then more clearly, here's where we're at in our budget, and here's where we hope to get to by the end of the year. Even more so, is there a way that you, as you make it clear, can say clearly what the money is for? Not just, hey, we need you to give to make budget, or hey, it's a good time of year to give, remember to give to us. But what is the money for? If you can articulate that through some stats, through some data, show people where their money goes when they give and show it clearly, even with some visuals, maybe even bonus points if you can tell some stories. If you have some testimonials that you can film or some quotes you can pull for how people's giving impacts real people. You can say as clearly as you can, when people give to this, it will build a well. When people give to this, it will build the gymnasium. When people give to this, it will keep the lights on. It will help the food program, whatever it may be. If we can as clearly and transparently as possible, not only articulate there is a need and an opportunity, but then what is the thing on the other side. When we give, we want to have as much trust with people as possible to be as clear as possible about where their money is going. My next tip for year-end giving then is to have a goal and clearly articulate that. So what I mean by that is our goal this year is to raise $10,000 in the month of December. Our goal this year is to raise $1 million in the month of December. It doesn't really matter what the number is. It'll be proportionate to your organization and what you guys typically do, but you want to think about clearly stating a goal and then each week, as often as possible, talking about where we are on the way to that goal. By the time that you feel tired of talking about it, the people in your community are only just going to be occurring to them that they should give. Oh, right, that thing you've been talking about for the last 3 weeks, I should do that. And now make note, it's not because people are dumb. People are not dumb. People are very smart and savvy these days. And certainly with digital stuff, they get it. It's actually just that people are busy. And so we need to tell people lots of times in lots of ways, here's the goal, here's how far we are to it, here's the goal, we're only this far, or we need this % more, or whatever it may be. Setting the target and clearly over communicating it allows busy people to stop in their tracks and then respond. Now, this only works if you also have my next tip. My next tip is to remove the barriers to giving. Make it as easy and accessible as possible to give. So this means if the only ways that you have to give is that you have to be physically in person with cash or check in hand on site at your location of your church or your charity, that's going to be a really hard way to give. I'm even loving, like I'm seeing lately in the Salvation Army, those classic, the bell and the red bucket that people can give in grocery stores or malls at this time of year out on streets. We see those all over the world and certainly in Canada and the US. What I love about those is now, of course, a lot of us don't carry cash and change. And so they've even made it possible to do a tap to give of a few dollars right there on the buckets. You'll see this all over now. And so this principle is true for us no matter what kind of church or charity. How can we make the barrier to giving as easy and simple and straightforward as possible? We can talk about our goals and clearly communicate them all we want, but if it requires too many hoops to jump through, you're going to lose people. And that's money that could have been given towards the important work that you're doing. So, can people give online? If not, set that up as soon as possible. If 30% of giving comes in December, then in November, it's not too late to set that up to have a huge impact and surge of opportunity in the month of December to not leave money that would have been given on the table. And then, of course, we want to think about as clearly as possible, not muddling that. Maybe we want to say, here are the 3 ways to give. You can give on person, cash or check. You can give online. Here's a very simple link with your organization/give. For example, you don't want to have too many numbers and letters in the domain name. You want to make it as clear as possible, memorable as possible, accessible as possible for people to get to that website link so that they can give. Make sure you have on your homepage that big Give Now button. Make it clear, make it obvious, make it accessible so that people don't have a barrier. They're not spending 5 minutes just trying to find the place to give on your website. And the third thing is, I would say, get creative in how you can be accessible. You know, maybe that means you need to think about having Interac and credit card machines on site, or maybe like those Salvation Army buckets, there's a way for tap to give or text to give. There's some other ways we can consider, but if you can have 3 ways, in person, online, and that third, whether it's text or tap, it gives so many opportunities for different kinds of ways people might be wanting to give so that we have as much generosity given towards your organization as possible towards that big goal that you've been articulating to your people all month long. As we talk about reminding people about keeping the goal in front of them, about being transparent and clear about how far we are along towards that goal, I want you to think about what your campaign is going to look like to do that. So we want to think about print. What are the print pieces that help people understand what they're giving to, how they can give, and give something tactile to people to maybe take away, whether it's a brochure, a print card, a poster, whatever it may be. You want to think about also your website. Is there a special website or just web page or just a very clear way to get to it? And the third thing is we want to be thinking about social media campaigns. How are we talking about this regularly on social media? And the fourth is our email campaign. And I left that fourth, but it actually probably is our most powerful way to communicate what our goals are and how we're doing along the way. As we said, December is such a busy season. We want to keep this in front of people regularly. And then in our email campaigns, again, make it quick as possible, easy accessibility. Click on that link and give right away. People can come from their email. And each week in email, give people updates on social media. Give people updates on Sunday morning service or on the screens or however it is that you connect with your people. Continue to give updates. We're 10% along, we're 20% along, so that people know where you're at. So we've clearly stated our goal. We have a target we're trying to reach and invite people to join us. And we're making it as easy as possible, as accessible as possible for them to give. Few barriers to entry means only one step between them and giving to your organization. Don't make it 7 steps if you could make it 1 or 2. And then the last thing is we want to keep reporting along the way. But the final thing that I think is so key that we often forget is my last tip for you today. I think this critical piece is something that a lot of churches and charities, in my experience, have not been very good at, because life moves on, things get busy, and they don't report back later. It's an opportunity, whether you met your goal or not, whether it was a good year or not such a good year in giving, whether you feel excited or disappointed, please report back to your people and tell them in January, after all the Christmas and year-end buzz is over, how do we do? You need to report back. Give them clear data. Show them where their money went. Thank donors. I can say that again. Thank your donors, and do it big. Do it sincerely, and remember how sacrificial for so many people their opportunity to give was, and how they felt like they were part of something bigger than them and making a difference with their resources. In a time where it's a recession and inflation and money's tight, please remember to appropriately, properly thank your people and report back in January. Even if it's not an amazing story of great success, it's important that we thank people and be clear in our reporting back to them. I think so often we have all this hype on the front end. A lot of churches and charities, I think, are good about asking for the money, and a lot drop the ball on the reporting and the thanking for it on the other side. So don't make that your thing. We want to make sure that you do that. An organization that I think does the thank you and report back really well, in my experience, because I've received those reports and thank yous, is Compassion Canada. And they are making this tutorial possible today. They really set a bar for the rest of us to learn how to do giving, donations, and reporting back, to communicate clearly. And I don't know if you know, but the story we're talking about right now is that we're facing an unprecedented global food crisis. This is the story that Compassion Canada wants to communicate right now and wants to invite us to be part of. The numbers are staggering. 828 million people, nearly 10% of the world's population, and that's 46 million more than the year before. They're fighting and struggling with hunger right now. And so this year, the Gifts of Compassion gift guide has gifts specifically targeted at the global food crisis that we're in the middle of right now. This 10% of the world that is struggling for food every single day. Can you imagine what that would be like if you don't know where your next meal is or how you're going to feed your children today, tomorrow, and the next day? You can go to compassion.ca/shop to give. We'd love for you to participate. Of course, there's all kinds of ways that we want to give at this time of year, and there's all kinds of people we need to give to at this time of year. So would you consider partnering with Compassion to give a gift of compassion so that more people can be fed this Christmas and into the next year? Thanks so much for checking out this tutorial. We have this whole group of tutorials, a whole resource library of tutorials that we've been building over the last couple of years. We'd love for you to check them out. Subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already so that you don't miss the new ones coming out. We want to resource you with tools for communication in the digital world. And as always, thanks again to Compassion Canada, the sponsor who is making this video possible. We'll see you on the next one.